Huzzah! Yes, that's right. In today's video, I am going to learn about the winged hussar and what made them so deadly. If you enjoyed this video, go down there and hit the like button and subscribe.
Cavalry, throughout the history, has been one of the most important factors when it came to winning battles. There have been a lot of famous cavalry units that have been romanticized in the ancient times, such as Persian cataphracts or companion cavalry during the reign of Alexander the Great. Both are noteworthy and have been important building stones of Persian and Macedon empires. However, not a single cavalry unit had as much of an impact on a country's dominance over their neighbors for centuries as the famed winged hussars. Winged hussars were a heavy cavalry formation active in Poland and in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth from the 1503 to 1702. They were a dominant fear-mongering hurricane of horses and steel, which made the Polish hussars to be respected and held in a high regard even during the Napoleonic era, long after their disbandment. Their epithet is derived from a large rear wings, which were intended to demoralize the enemy during the charge and also just face it, because they looked unique and freaking cool.
That is the thing with the wings. I don't know if they made a noise as well, possibly, when being charged at high speed. But you've got massive, massive horses. You've got men with big armor on. The wings that just would... I'm sure if you had these charging at you, the size and the mass, and actually, you know, even if there was, say, 1,000, it may look like 2,000. And because they're so physically big and the wings just overdo it as well, and it's just putting the fear of God into people.
Contrary to the popular belief, hussars originated in the mercenary units of exiled warriors from the Balkan region of Europe. Mercenary lancers of Serbian origin, known as the Raskians, were frequently hired to counter the Ottoman Sipahi and Delhi cavalry.
They weren't originally Polish.
In the 15th century, the hussars based on those of Matthias Corvinus were adopted by some European armies to provide light and expendable cavalry units. The true winged hussar arrived with the reforms of the King of Poland and Grand Duke of Lithuania Stephen Bathory in the 1570s, and was later led by King John III Sobieski. Most hussars were recruited from the wealthier Polish nobility known as Szlachta.
That makes perfect sense, because I reckon a lot of it's always the same with knights and things, isn't it? That knights normally are wealthy. They've, you know, and if it's the same with the hussars as well, they have come from wealthy upper class families, because I reckon they would have had to buy their horses. They would have had to buy probably the armor and things like that. So that doesn't come cheap. So you're only going to get rich people that could afford to be in this unit of hussars, right? And I assume that is why. I'm pretty sure, because I'm sure it's the same with knights.
Each hussar, tovarish, or comrade in English, raised his own pochet or retinue. Several retinues were combined to form a hussar banner or company. Over the course of the 16th century, hussars became heavier in character. They abandoned wooden shields and adopted metal-plated body armor. Hussars had to provide the arms and the armor for themselves and their retainers, except for the lance, which was provided by the king. The lance was the main offensive weapon of the hussar and also the key reason for their successes on the battlefield. One of the reasons that the European armies were turning to firearms and away from the cavalry charges was the appearance of pikemen or infantry equipped with two-handed pikes. That infantry made the charges of lance-bearing knights largely obsolete, and knights' one-handed lance couldn't be as heavy as the pike and therefore had to be shorter. Consequently, the knights couldn't reach beyond the pikes, so charging was out of the question.
That is a key thing, isn't it, in the evolution of a battle and the evolution of combat, in that horses were quite easy to counter. And it is simply from this picture we've just seen, using pikes to stop a horse charge. You do not charge into a load of pikes. And this is the funny thing I always think of when I think of Lord of the Rings. At the end of the Two Towers, you see Gandalf leading the charge of the Rohirrim. You see them charging down this hill, which would have been far too steep, and they are charging into a load of Uruk-hai with their pikes. Would not have happened. Completely inaccurate, because it's just crazy. Your horse is worth a hell of a lot, and you do not want to risk your horse. That is a key thing, and you don't want to do it. I'm gonna say Gandalf used his, obviously, the light to help this problem. But anyway, yeah, let's carry on. I get sidetracked.
But the winged horsemen found a way to get around this, a quite crafty one. They devised a hollow lance, something revolutionary at the time. Not only it was lighter than the traditional one, but it also broke less easily. That's right, according to the laws of physics, a hollow lance is more robust than a full one. Also, thanks to the lower weight, the length could be extended.
Oh.
Suddenly, the Hussars' lance could be over 6 meters long, longer than a pikeman's pike, which averaged around 5 meters in length. There were reports of Hussars impaling up to 6 Russians, or Turks, with a single charge. Moreover, the shabla, or saber in English, was carried on the left side, and several types of the sabers were known to winged hussars, including the renowned shabla husarska. Some hussars used battle axes and even war hammers. Later, they proved their adaptability when they embraced pistols. They protected themselves with an armor made of steel which was light, weighing around 15 kilograms. For riding, they used light Turkish saddles. The lightness of their attire allowed the hussar horses to gallop at a full speed for a long time. The hussars used a special breed of horses. They were a cross between Polish and Tartar horses. The horses were famous for their endurance, speed, and maneuverability. The purpose of the shock cavalry was to inflict as much physical damage as possible with a single charge, but great military minds of the past realized that the emotional factor is as important as the physical one.
That's what I was saying at the start. With the size of the horses that they probably had, the armor, and then adding the wings, it's increasing the size of what these hussars look like. And if you're at a distance, you're on foot and you see this mass of winged hussars coming at you, it is scary, because it would be scary because they're so big and bigger than what you are. And so I know this because I play certain computer games, and if your unit loses morale and you break formation because of fear, well, that can win a battle. So like it just said, it's not just about how dangerous physically the hussars were, it's also the emotional and the fear that they put into people before they've even made contact. Interesting.
That's why winged hussars started polishing their armor so it became more visible and bright. It is also the reason why they wore leopard or bear skins on their shoulders, and most importantly, why they attached eagle wings to themselves, hence getting the name the winged hussars. In an era where it was unlikely that you would ever see a neighboring city, what were you supposed to make of the rapidly approaching heavily armored legion of vengeful, glittering angels? The only problem was that the only wealthy nobles could have afforded the hussar equipment and a horse. For example, the hussar horse was worth more than an entire village. Therefore, winged hussars were a very important but also precious unit and hardly expandable. This high entry level meant that there were never more than 10,000 of them at any one time. usually only a few thousand. Besides the famous Battle of Vienna in 1683, the Winged Hussars won most of the battles they fought. In 1610, at the Battle of Klushino, 5,000 Winged Hussars defeated the Russian army of 35,000 soldiers, an overwhelming odds of being outnumbered 5-1. Later, they marched into Moscow, captured it and held on to it for 2 years, a feast that even the greatest military minds of history such as Napoleon Bonaparte and warlike superpowers such as German Empire in World War I and Third Reich in World War II were unable to recreate.
I bet loads of people now are wishing they could speak to these great minds of before, with old Vlad in charge over in Russia at the moment with just the awful things he did. But to think the Winged Hussars and Poland managed to take control of Moscow. That's an achievement, right?
In 1621, at the Battle of Chochim, 45,000 Poles repelled the invasion of 170,000 Ottoman Turks. The Poles entrenched themselves and the Ottomans laid the siege. However, the Winged Hussars' counterattacks were devastating to the Ottoman army. On one occasion, 600 Winged Hussars charged against 10,000 Ottomans. They broke their lines and drove the Ottoman janissaries back to their camp. Perhaps the most famous was the Battle of Vienna in 1683. The Ottoman Empire was just days away from conquering Vienna and putting the Christianity in the Europe in danger, possibly establishing a new hegemony over the Central and Christian Europe. However, the King of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, John III Sobieski, arrived just in time to save the day. He led 18,000 horsemen to charge down the hills, which became the largest cavalry charge in history.
Wow.
The victory was so decisive that it eventually led to the decline of Ottoman Empire and created a power vacuum in the region, which was later used by the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Okay, I just want you to take a second, right? Take a second and in your head, imagine 18,000 Winged Hussars riding down a hill at you, and think about what you'd be thinking at the time. What would be running through your mind? You're an Ottoman and you've got 18,000 Winged Hussars charging down a hill at you. I don't think I would stay to see what happens. I think I would be off. In
1694, at the Battle of Hodov, 400 Winged Hussars stood up against the 40,000 Crimean Tatars and defeated them. The Poles nicknamed the battle the Polish Thermopylae. The end of the Hussars' glory came a few years after their greatest victory at the Battle of Vienna. In 1702, at the Battle of Klishov, the Swedish army led by the famous Charles XII destroyed the Winged Hussars. It was the signal of the downfall of the famed cavalry. After nearly 2 centuries of dominance, the adversaries of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth started adapting and learned how to counter this unstoppable force of steel and flesh. The Hussars' opponents began using so-called Frisian horses. These were spiked obstacles that stopped cavalry charges. The firearms improved rapidly and caused more damage to the horsemen. Their reputation had also suffered, as the quality of the soldiers seeking to join them visibly decreased, as well as the slumping Polish economy were the main reasons behind the end of the Hussars. From then on, the Winged Hussars took only part in ceremonies, as they became too expensive to raise and obsolete in the new modern warfare.
We've seen many occasions, haven't we, of when certain military units have become obsolete. Here's an example. You've got samurai, for example. There's so many examples of units that wouldn't stand a chance because mainly of guns. The speed of gunfire, these Winged Hussars wouldn't stand a chance, would they, against some sort of machine gun? And because of the value of these horses, you're not going to risk your horse getting shot and killed, and you wouldn't do it, would you? And so warfare has changed, and you see warfare's changed now as well, hasn't it? A lot of warfare now is digital. It's online warfare, drones. So a lot of it's not close contact at all, is it? You know, it started from hand-to-hand combat, and warfare has just got further and further away, hasn't it? And there's less and less contact to another person. So their time was clearly going to be up sooner rather than later.
Which led to the public giving them a mocking nickname, the funeral soldiers. The Polish parliament abolished them in 1776. Yet, after the partition of Poland, the tradition of skilled hussars lived on, some of which kept a fear-mongering reputation while serving in Napoleon's armies. Today, the hussars are but a memory that conjures the lost glory of Poland's early modern period. Some of their accessories have become prized elements of the museum collections. At Kornik Castle, there are 3 lances. At the Wawel Royal Castle, you can see a winged suit of armor, while on display at Warsaw Polish Army Museum is an ornate hussars horse stack for parades. The Polish hussars are depicted on the commemorative 200 złotych gold coin, and the badge of the Polish Army's 1st Armored Division is inspired by the armor of the winged hussars.
Nice.
Despite their fall from grace, their unique innovative design and legendary fearsomeness means that their image has continued to last through all sorts of stories for the last 230 odd years since their dissolution. No doubt, the hussars will continue to inspire many for years to come. The winged hussars were the deadliest cavalry in the history of humankind. They won most of the battles they fought, even when outnumbered by the enemy. The sight of the winged hussars inflicted fear in the hearts of the opponents. They achieved a legendary reputation. The stories about their feats circulated across Europe, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire. Everyone knew and feared the angels of death.
There you go. You can understand why they were so dangerous, and a lot of it probably wasn't how physically violent and or how deadly they were in terms of their physical attacks. A lot of it was probably all in the head, the mental side of things. Seeing these massive cavalry, can't even speak, massive cavalry charges, you know, these huge wings on their back that made, you know, that 18,000 they spoke about earlier, it probably felt like a lot more because of the physical size. These guys had the best armor, the best equipment, because of their wealth. And that is a massive part of probably why they were so dangerous. You know, the people they were facing, you know, didn't have the same sort of equipment, didn't have the same sort of size and aura about them. But then there's also the side of the fact that they're talking about the lance, that the, you know, can up, I think, was it six meters? Was it 16 meters? I can't remember now. Oh, that's gone. They've learned to have hollow poles that are sturdier but lighter. So they were able to, when the opposing armies found a way to stop them, they were able to adapt, and that was whether it's the poles or when they started using pistols as well. And that's what, you know, you have to do. That's just a general thing in life. You have to adapt, and that's why they were possibly able to stay so dangerous for so long. Really, really interesting. I know there is a Sabaton song. I will not be reacting to the Sabaton song because copyright. But really fascinating. Finally, glad I found a video to actually learn about them. Thank you so much. What have you got? Any stories about Winged Hussars? Who are they? Your favourite army military unit? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.